This is the WrestleBread Podcast, bringing you the latest news, recaps, and analysis of AEW and WWE. Get the unique perspective from a wrestling fan of over 25 years. Here's your host, Jaydee.
What's going on, guys? This is Jaydee here, and this is episode 78 of the WrestleBread Podcast. So just for a disclaimer, I am, for whatever reason, am still up recording, and it is like 2 o'clock in the morning. So if you hear my cat in the background, apparently this is like her hour to act crazy. So for all my cat people out there, you know exactly the time that I'm talking about when, for some reason, your cat gets possessed and they start running around and making weird ass sounds. So I apologize if you hear in the background. So we have a pay-per-view this weekend. WWE seemed to kind of forgot about it. We also have Bound for Glory on Saturday night. We also had NXT, I guess it would be considered the go-home show for Halloween Havoc that's coming up next week. And then we had AEW Dynamite, which some interesting things happened, I have to say. But let me get into some news. So first piece of news is that Brock Lesnar will be in UFC 4. And what I mean by that is the actual video game. EA Sports had released a trailer of Brock Lesnar inside the octagon again. And they actually offered UFC 4 to be free to play for this weekend. And my mind, I don't know why I mean, with them saying it's free to play this weekend, I thought the game was coming out later until I remembered, no, this game came out almost 2 months ago. And it is now free to play, and you can actually play as Brock Lesnar in this free to play. It started about a couple of days ago and it's ending on Sunday. And I looked into it, and the reason why it is free to play, probably because all the bad reviews it got on it. If you look it up on Google, you'll see that the game got an average 1.9 rating, which is not very good. I do plan to play it this weekend. I mean, it's free, so I'll definitely play as Brock Lesnar and probably see what they have on the roster, but I'm not going to buy it, of course. Another piece of news, Kairi Sane will provide guest commentary for the Japanese broadcast of Hell in a Cell this Sunday. So there was a tweet posted by J Sports that posted a tweet of Kairi Sane, who was speaking in her native language, of course, promoting Hell in a Cell. I don't know if WWE is actually going to show a clip, hopefully, of Kairi Sane being a guest commentator for Japan. And I also read somewhere that WWE is allowing her to wrestle in Japan as well. So I'll keep an eye out to see what comes from that. Another piece of news is that EC3 is saying that WWE took his idea and turned it into Raw Underground. So, of course, a while ago, when Shane McMahon appeared on Corey Graves' After the Bell podcast, he talked about how Raw Underground was primarily his own idea, and it was suggested heavily by fights of his that type of style in Japan. EC3 went on to the Ring of Honor Strong podcast and accused that WWE stole the concept from him. I got this piece of news from Cage Side Seats, and EC3 said, "I knew it was going to be stolen, so I was prepared for it. I didn't know it'd go to that length, and I know mine played to a minor bubble of professional wrestling audience, while majority of it saw whatever the hell they put out there. The way I look at it is kind of like I was Wayne's World. I was producing this show in Aurora, my basement with my buddy Garth. We'll call him JC in this instance. And then Rob Lowe came in, brought us. When I saw Shane McMahon in the ring, not in a real underground, mine was a real underground. This manufactured, heartless, desolate studio. I'm looking at Shane, and it felt like when Noah was rapping on Wayne's World after they brought him out. It was just inauthentic, and like I said, it had no heart. So I knew something would have been taken from it. I didn't expect the whole aesthetic, and while it upset my friend JC, who I worked very hard on with it, at the same time, it's just a challenge to do something different, better next time, which I definitely plan on doing because, again, control your narrative. Again, Ring of Honor provides freedom. I'm not tied to doing just that. There's things I want to do in the future and continue that narrative and continue that narrative as sort of supplemental content to whatever other places I'm doing things in, and I have bold, ambitious views for it. We'll see if it works out. I think it will. So as we all know, it seems like Raw Underground is dead. And I always wondered, what was the point of Raw Underground? With a lot of things that goes on in wrestling, and you heard me say this on the podcast, what is the point of it? What is the end game? Why are we doing this? Why were we doing Raw Underground? What was the point? Especially the fact that some of the storylines that was happening in Raw Underground was not exactly translating to the main, basically the Raw, the show. We did have a few times the Hurt Business getting there. We had Braun Strowman getting there. Even Dolph Ziggler had some type of success, but it really didn't translate to any type of storylines, or it didn't translate to what was going on in the actual show. Shane O'Mac was definitely like an MC of it all, and they even had strippers at one point. It really didn't do anything much for the wrestlers. Basically, Braun Strowman and the bodyguard that would be outside, Jordan, he got something out of it all too, and so did Daba, I think his name is. He is now on to the main roster of Raw. I remembered watching the video that EC3 put out where he had an underground type of setting and he was wrestling someone when he was putting out his videos on social media. So you shouldn't be too surprised that things get taken. It happens all the time. Either one promotion takes something from another promotion and they either make it a parody or they straight up copy the idea. So we have Bound for Glory coming on Saturday night, and I caught half of Impact this week, and it did a pretty good job as far as setting up the promotion that was coming this weekend. I didn't really catch it, so I missed half of the show, so I didn't get to see the matchup of Heath versus Rhino, Alicia Edwards, Cousin Jake, and Hernandez, nor did I see the interview with Moose, which I heard was good. I didn't catch Havoc versus Rosemary, but I did see Kylie Ray and EC3 speak about their Bound for Glory matches, which I thought was definitely some great promo work from them. And I did see Eddie Edwards versus Sammy, and he had Ken Shamrock, who showed up at the end. Ken Shamrock looks great, I have to say. Especially, I keep saying it, the fact that he's 50-something and he is able to move in the ring and everything like that is awesome. And then I saw Chris Bay versus Rahid Raju, I think his name is. Jordan Grace. It was a 6-man tag, actually, with them three versus TJP, who was actually on WWE at one point. Willie Mack and Trey Miguel. This was an excellent match to set up what would be the match for the X Division title. It felt like there was a little bit that was held back, which I kind of expected because you don't want to show all the cards when the pay-per-view is coming up anyway. But either way, there were some good moments in there. And then we also had the main event, which was the Good Brothers versus the North. Of course, this was to set up so it was setting up the Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match for the Impact World Tag Team Championship. It was a fantastic match. I mean, starting out, it was good, and then, of course, it led to the other two teams coming in, and the ref called for no contest, and then the other two teams came out. So definitely left a bit of suspension for their pay-per-view Bound for Glory. So I'm going to give my predictions for Bound for Glory right now. They have 8 matches set up. The first match was called the Call Your Shot Gauntlet match, where the winner could choose any championship match of their choice. And if Heath or Rhino wins, then Heath also wins a full-time contract with Impact Wrestling. If neither wins, then Rhino is fired. Hernandez will enter last while Rhino enters first. So it is AC Ramono versus Alicia Edwards versus Brian Myers versus Havoc versus Heath versus Hernandez versus Larry D versus Rhino versus Taya Valkyrie. Tennille Dashwood versus Tommy Dreamer versus To Be Determined. So, of course, there's going to be a surprise entrant. Maybe someone who's recently signed to recently signed to Impact from WWE, possibly. I'm actually going to say either Heath or Rhino may win this. Because the storyline for a while is Heath Ledger trying to get a contract with Impact Wrestling, and he just keep coming across roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. Now, depending on who this mystery person is, that person could definitely win the match, because, normally whenever there is a surprise entrant for any type of gauntlet, battle royale, or whatever, normally that's the person who wins. So I'm going to go with one of those two. But it may be that to be determined person. But of course, I don't know who that is. And maybe that'll change my pick. So we also get Eddie Edwards versus Ken Shamrock, of course. The storyline with this one is that Eddie Edwards was attacked. Come to find out, it was Ken Shamrock who attacked him. I'm going to go with Ken Shamrock on this one here. I think Sammy is going to get involved in this matchup and will cause Eddie Edwards to lose. Either though Eddie could win this match as well, but I think Ken Shamrock is going to pull this one through. We also have EC3 versus Moose. I'm going to go with EC3 on this one. Moose, if I remember correctly, was going against Tommy Dreamer for a little bit, and he was pretty dominant with that. So I'm going to go with EC3. EC3 has been tormenting Moose for quite a while, and I feel as though for this to be his first major feud, that he would be successful in this matchup. Next up, we have the Impact X Division Championship. Rohit. I forgot to get the pronunciation of this, so if I say it correctly, please forgive me. Chris Bay versus Jordan Grace versus Trey versus TJP versus Willie Mack. Everyone in this matchup definitely has talent. I definitely remember Chris Bay from Slammiversary. I remember Willie Mack, I believe, too, from Slammiversary. Jordan Grace, I knew ever since, I think she was in the Mae Young Classic with NXT, but I remember seeing her a lot before. I saw Trey before, but I haven't seen the champion. I'm gonna go with Chris Bay on this one. Chris Bay was the X Division champion before, and I think he's going to win the title back. So next up is the Impact World Tag Team Championship match. It's the Motor City Machine Guns versus the Good Brothers versus Madman Fulton and Ace Austin versus the North. So this match can either go two ways. Either the Motor City Machine Guns retain or the Good Brothers win the championship. I think the Good Brothers are going to win this match. I think they would more likely pin the North so that the Motor City Machine Guns will not officially quote unquote lose their titles. The Motor City Machine Guns are definitely so good of a tag team. I hate to see them lose the belts, but I think a matchup between them and the Good Brothers, a feud between those two, would definitely be pretty good. Now, I have seen Madman Fulton and Ace Austin. A lot of people compare Ace Austin to, I believe it was AJ Styles, and I've seen him in the ring, so he was very impressive. I think it was Slammiversary, and then I watched a couple of Impact episodes after that, and he was very impressive from what I've seen. But I think that I don't think they're going to win the titles here, and nor do I think they'll be pinned. After that, we have the Impact Knockouts Championship. Next up, for the Impact Knockouts Championship, we have Deonna Purrazzo versus Kylie Rae. I'm going to go with Kylie Rae on this one. Deonna was very dominant ever since she won the title, and she's been excellent in her gimmick. But I think it's Kylie's time. They definitely have set it up that this is going to be a bit of an underdog winning, especially with her friend. I think her friend Susie or something like that had her arm broken right in front of her, and Kylie has been fighting hard to get her shot and definitely to get her title shot and to definitely win the belt. So I think Kylie will win. Unless Deonna has something up her sleeve and maybe somebody to help her out and win. So it's very possible that Deonna may retain. Ironically, I have all the champions losing their titles, so I'm sure I'm going to be pretty wrong on some of my predictions. And then finally, we have the Impact World Championship, Eric Young versus Rich Swann. And I'm predicting that Rich Swann would win the titles. So I have all titles switching hands. So maybe I should keep my tag team championship prediction sticking with the Motor City Machine Guns. But this is a big pay-per-view for Impact. They don't put out that many pay-per-views anyway. So I think it's, if they decide to definitely shake things up a lot, they can continue on with having all these champions have all these titles switch hands. But I'm going to go with can't talk. I'm sorry. It's like 2:30 in the morning right now. Rich Swann. Gosh. I'm going to go with Swann. I didn't watch the video, but they went into his background of how his parents had passed away, I believe, when he was young. And they're really putting his story out there. Whereas though for Eric Young, they keep doing this annoying ass commercial of him talking to himself in a jail. And every single time they go to a commercial, that's what they play. I normally watch Impact Wrestling on their Twitch channel. And as soon as they go to commercial, that's the exact thing that they play over and over and over again. And it's nothing else to promote for Bound for Glory except for that. So I think they may be purposely doing that so people can cheer more for Swann than for Eric Young. I like Eric Young's character in Impact. Definitely a big step up of what he was doing in WWE. Of course, he's a lot more crazier than he was when he was last in Impact Wrestling. But I'm going with Swann on this one. Definitely a big underdog type of storyline. He had his leg hurt. He entered in that fatal 5-way match at Slammiversary. He's just been fighting back ever since when he got that leg injury and just been fighting and fighting and fighting ever since. So I think this will definitely be his time. And I think a lot of titles are going to change hands because there are a lot of underdogs in this lineup. I mean, we got Swann, we got Kylie Rae. In the Call Your Shot Gauntlet, it's Heath and Rhino. Eddie Edwards. It's a lot of type of underdog, quote-unquote, storylines going on here. So I think that a lot of the underdogs are going to win. So getting into the recaps for NXT and AEW Dynamite. Apparently, neither one of them really did well up to the World Series, but I really don't think that means anything. Like I say over and over again, their numbers aren't good, period. We're in the middle of a pandemic. There's no bar to go to. There weren't any restaurants for you to go to. You had nothing to do except for sit home. And they still couldn't pull in numbers. So I don't get why people get all up in arms of how many numbers, who's pulling in the more numbers when both promotions are losing. Neither promotion hit 1 million viewers, except for like in the first weeks that the first weeks that NXT Live came out, live on Wednesdays, and when AEW Dynamite started. And since then, they really haven't pulled, 1 million viewers or anything like that. So it kind of like gets frustrating that we constantly hear about ratings, and both shows are pulling in 600,000 or 700,000. And we didn't have sports either. So you can say the World Series and the NBA Finals and this, that, and the third, when we didn't have sports at one point. The only sports there was wrestling. Think about that. The only sports that was going on was wrestling, and people still didn't tune into it. So going with NXT, we opened up with a triple threat match, Velveteen Dream versus Kushida versus Tommaso Ciampa. When Velveteen Dream was coming out, Tommaso attacked him from behind. This was a pretty good match to start off the show. Velveteen Dream had a cast on his arm because of Kushida attacking him and pretty much breaking his arm. Dream used his cast to knock out Tommaso Ciampa, and Kushida was able to pick up the win. I definitely love this edgier persona that Kushida is displaying. I can't wait to see where this goes, if he is going to be eventually looking for a shot at the North American Championship once the feud between Damian Priest and Johnny Gargano is over, or if he's trying to go for the main title. But I'm hoping that this edgier version of Kushida will take him somewhere. Next up, we have Amber Moon, and I like her theme music this time. I still don't get what her gimmick is. She has this like Mad Max type of wolf or something like that thing going on. So I don't know what she is right now. She was a lot cooler when she was like that the scorpion red eye gimmick, but I don't know. She was going against Jessie Kanaya, who tapped out. Amber Moon did this new submission finisher. I don't think there's a name for it yet, or unless they said it and I definitely didn't catch it. But afterwards, Amber Moon was celebrating with the WWE Universe or the Thunderdome, and Dakota Kai attacked her. And I'm all for that matchup, Dakota Kai versus Amber Moon, because definitely both women can definitely throw down the ring. And I'm very interested to see where this goes, what this feud will do for both women. After that, we saw Bobby Fish gets attacked. No one knew who attacked him. Of course, Bobby Fish and Roderick Strong are supposed to go against Breezango later on that night for the tag team championship. Once Bobby Fish got injured, then Kyle O'Reilly decided to jump in and replace Bobby Fish as well. We get Bronson versus Austin Theory. I really didn't get a chance to watch this matchup because at this time, I believe it was the Lucha Brothers going on on AEW Dynamite, so that matchup had my full attention. But I saw that Bronson Reed won, of course. He's been very dominant in NXT Live, and he can definitely, I keep using the word athletic, but he kind of does a lot of good high-flying moves for a man his size. Afterwards, Austin Theory is walking to his car, and he said, "I quit." I didn't really catch an update about that, if he was actually quitting the company or whatever, or if he's going up to the main roster. I don't know. Or maybe he is repackaging himself, maybe, like we would see on SmackDown. After that, it was a 6-man tag. Of course, it was Legado del Fantasma versus Swerve, Adonis, and Jake Atlas. There was a cartwheel DDT that happened on the announcer table by Jake Atlas. This was a pretty good match, and my attention, unfortunately, was still split between both shows. I forgot what was going on AEW at the time, but they had a lot of pretty good matches on there as well. So unfortunately, my attention was split between both shows, so I didn't really watch this full match, nor did I really watch the full of the other match that was going on, because there was a lot going on with both matches. And then we get the Garganos at home with their mini wheel, quote unquote. Candice LeRae was trying to convince Johnny Gargano to get some practice in. Of course, he goes to spin the wheel and he gets a Buried Alive match, and then he spins it again. He gets a casket match, a lot of Undertaker type matches. And of course, he starts getting upset and he walks off. So I don't know if that is a bit of a foreshadow of what's to come, that maybe we'll get some type of Undertaker style matchup with Johnny Gargano, or if maybe Johnny Gargano may be afraid of a graveyard or cemetery, who knows. We'll be waiting for Halloween Havoc to come around to see what happens from Spin the Wheel, Make a Deal. Afterwards, we see Roderick Strong gets attacked, and now we are down to only Kyle O'Reilly who is left, and he has to figure out what is he going to do for the championship that night. Xia Li loses again, and she was pretty upset. She received some type of envelope or notice that she had to win a matchup. She went against Casey Carazano. I probably butchered her last name. But she went up against Casey, and Casey didn't let her win, and Xia Li was very upset, attacked her afterwards, and she kept saying that it's very important for her to win a match. Who knows where this will lead to? Maybe we'll find out at Halloween Havoc, or maybe we'll find out the week afterwards, the Falling Out show, to see exactly what it is that she's talking about. So then we get to a backstage segment with Kyle O'Reilly, Breezango, and then we had Oney Larkin and Danny Burch backstage. Kyle O'Reilly, of course, couldn't wrestle by himself in a handicap match, so Larkin and Burch were in the match. They were facing Breezango for the tag team titles. The referee got distracted and Burch did a low blow, and there was a mystery man that helped out and they won the titles. They were celebrating with this mystery man who had a silver metal mask on his face. So the guy removes the mask and it was Pat McAfee. I liked the fact that this all came full circle. We don't know exactly if he was behind it, or if it was Larkin and Burch behind it, or if it was someone completely different behind the Undisputed Era getting attacked one by one. Undisputed Era did defeat them to get their title shot the week before, and I'm pretty sure they weren't very happy about it, so they probably decided to attack each member of the Undisputed Era, maybe with the encouragement of Pat McAfee to do so as well. And we had Pat McAfee back, and that was a really good swerve that I didn't expect to see coming. I don't think I read anything about Pat McAfee appearing in NXT or anything, so they did a really good job hiding that. So going into AEW, we had all the number one contenderships for the world title and for the tag team title matches going on. Overall, this was a pretty good AEW Dynamite. Overall, NXT was pretty good as well. The only thing with NXT right now is that they have a lot of the same matchups going on. So one thing I didn't write down was the tag team matchup of Killian Dane and Drake Maverick. They were going against pretty much the same people. We had Legato pretty much going against Swerve, and it's just a lot of matchups that we're seeing over and over again. So going into AEW Dynamite, we had the number one contendership for the world title, the AEW World Championship. And the first match was Wardlow versus Jungle Boy. Brought Jungle Boy into town. I mean, Jungle Boy had some offense, of course, but Wardlow was very dominant. And I thought that maybe Jungle Boy would go into the next matchup, but boy, was I wrong. Wardlow won this match, and he did this crazy move, like a flapjack or something like that. He spun Jungle Boy into the air, and then he went for the cover. 1, 2, 3. Next up, we had Kenny Omega versus Sonny Kiss. Joey Janela was injured. He was supposed to be in this matchup, but was injured, so Sonny Kiss was in this matchup, which I completely forgot when I was watching at the time. But Kenny Omega with the long-ass introduction by Justin Roberts. And of course, we saw Girls with the Broom, and it looks like we have the return of the cleaner, which I'm very excited about. I felt as though Kenny Omega wasn't really 100% Kenny Omega, not like we have seen over in Japan, and I felt as though he was kind of holding back, which he said himself that he was holding back the character just so that other people can shine. But Kenny Omega definitely has a lot of talent. So it looks like we get the cleaner back. He got rid of Sonny Kiss in less than 5 seconds. And the look that he had on his face definitely blasted all over Twitter. It is now the latest meme. And Kenny Omega goes on to next week. So afterwards, we had a very passionate Eddie Kingston promo about his matchup versus Jon Moxley. Can't wait for this matchup to come. And then afterwards, it was the matchup that I have been waiting for. Definitely one of the match of the year candidates, in my opinion. That may sound a little biased, and I don't really care because they're my favorite tag team right now. And it is the Lucha Brothers, Rey Fenix versus Pinto El Zero. And this was a lot, okay? First of all, we had a chop contest for a little bit between the brothers. There was a lot of reversals, of course, because the brothers knew each other's styles. We had Penta with like a sling blade off of the top rope. We had Rey Fenix, who did a head scissors off of the top rope. And I saw that he landed wrong, and you can clearly tell that something was off. He was definitely reaching for his neck and head, and you see his brother, making sure that he was okay at first, but they let the match continue. Rey Fenix doing a Spanish fly. There was this this crazy pop-up powerbomb that Penta did. I never seen it before. I mean, I can't even describe what it was. A lot of these moves that these brothers did, I couldn't even describe. And then there was this Turtle World Destroyer, Canadian Destroyer, that Rey Fenix did to win the match, which was the craziest thing. And they put on a very good match. I was very happy about it. Afterwards, we had Colt Cabana versus Hangman Page. The person who puts in the little tidbits above the nameplate is hilarious, because for Hangman Page, it said he entered this tournament via a series of drunk voicemails. I really didn't pay attention too much to this match. I forgot what was on NXT that I was paying attention to more, that I was kind of tuning out this matchup. I don't really care for him. What he's doing in the Dark Order makes me pay attention to him a little more. But I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. Colt Cabana really doesn't do anything for me, unfortunately. So we're going to get to the MJF and Chris Jericho in a little bit, but we had Britt Baker in action. She was going against Kylie King, who apparently has been pretty good on AEW Dark. So now she's been brought on for AEW Dynamite versus Britt Baker. Unfortunately, this was pretty much a squash match. This was just to show the dominance of Britt Baker once again, now that she is fully recovered and she is able to wrestle again. So next up, we get the La Dinner del Bonaire, which was very interesting, I have to say. A lot of people had a lot of things to say about it, including myself. This was Chris Jericho and MJF sitting down for a steak dinner off somewhere. MJF saying the waitress's name wrong, of course. And MJF ordered a 20-ounce steak with a baked potato on the side. Cooked, well done. Chris Jericho shakes his head, orders the same thing, but said medium well. MJF turned around and said medium, and then they both went back and forth until they both pretty much said rare. Chris Jericho and MJF started talking and saying, and MJF was saying, we're pretty much the same person, this, that, and the third. And then they kind of looked at each other, and then it went to a musical. First of all, I did not know MJF can really sing. I thought they were just lip singing until I really started to listen. Like, I wasn't even listening to the lyrics because I was just so caught off guard of how well MJF can sing. It's amazing. He has an amazing voice. And I really didn't expect it from someone who plays such a good asshole, I have to say. But he can really sing. I knew it was Chris Jericho singing because, Chris Jericho sings. But I really didn't expect MJF. Now, the thing about this is, I had mentioned on Twitter, if WWE was to do something like this, because people was like, this is the best thing AEW has done, this is the best thing of the year, that was so entertained, this, that, and the third. And I was like, well, what if WWE were to do the same thing? And I even had a discussion with the Hubs about it as well. If WWE were to do the same thing, how would people react, But the difference is, with WWE, whenever they do comedy bits, it's not done in the proper way to benefit the wrestler. Let's talk about Shorty G and the Uzi Hot segment, and a lot of segments that unfortunately wrestlers were involved in, and it really didn't help them at all. I mean, John Moxley, when he was wearing the gas mask, for example, a lot of segments that wrestlers are in, and it really didn't do them any good. Some people compared this music performance with Elias' music performance, but Elias makes a lot more sense because he is actually a musician. And so him performing a song on the stage makes a lot of sense. I mean, we could all remember the days of The Rock and sitting in the middle of the ring with a guitar and having like full on concerts in the middle of Raw. I don't get people complaining with that portion. I mean, Elias' gimmick is that he is a singer, he is a guitarist, he is a star in his own mind. So of course he's going to have an album, he's going to sing, he's going to have a whole stage band. That makes sense. Was the musical with MJF and Jericho entertaining? Yes. My thing is that, because a lot of people's like, oh, it's comedy and it's that and the third. The thing that I have an issue with when it comes to comedy is how does it benefit the wrestler? Can the wrestler survive something like this? For example, with Chad Gable turning into the Shorty G, was that gimmick able to survive the comedy that stemmed for it? No, because Chad Gable became pretty much a jobber. He was pretty much squashed, had no type of momentum, whereas though before we all said that Chad Gable was going to be the next Kurt Angle. We were all on the American Alpha train. We all was ready, willing, and Gable. Who remembers that saying? I do. And so look at FTR, the Revival. Were they able to survive that segment of the Uzi-Hot? No, because people didn't take them seriously. So my thing is, while yes, it was entertaining, a lot of people had fun with it. Where does this benefit MJF? Now, it makes sense for Jericho to be in some type of musical because he's actually a musician. He puts out albums. I mean, for crying out loud, his song is his theme. One of his other songs was the theme for a pay-per-view. So it makes sense. But for MJF, my thing is, where does it go from here? AEW, it does a pretty good job at making sure that the comedy isn't detrimental to the person. WWE doesn't know how to handle the comedy their comedic segments properly. They do it so that it doesn't make sense and it doesn't fit the gimmick. After the whole Uzi-Hot segment, I knew that the Revival was pretty much dead in the water because this was when they first came up and they were going against the Usos. And I wanted the Revival to, be known for their wrestling skill, the way that they can throw down the ring. Unfortunately, they were part of these comedic bits and it was detrimental to them because they were put in front of casuals who do not watch NXT, who do not know who the Revival is, do not know how talented they are. So when you do these comedy bits in front of the casuals, that's what they're going to perceive them as. So with what's happening with AEW, it was very entertaining. We're going to a musical, something that I would say is kind of out of his character. And then we had the main event, which was the Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match. It was the Young Bucks, Private Party, the Dark Order, and Butcher and the Blade. And they had the bunny back, which Eddie Kingston had brought back, and they really didn't explain how she switched with being the blonde and the happy-go-lucky girl with the Nightmare Sisters and QT Marshall to now being the bunny. No explanation at all. Okay, fine, whatever. Very, very scary point, and I don't know for the life of me how Tony Khan, the referee, and the wrestlers involved were able to be, I don't know if it's carelessness or just like oblivious to it. But Alex Reynolds got hit in the head somehow. I think it was a knee to the head or something like that with Private Party. And you can tell he was laid out. He was knocked out. And he was knocked out for like a good 2 minutes almost. And he was just laying there. One of the members of, it was either the Butcher or the Blade, dragged him to the corner and tagged him in. And then that person got in. I think it was the Butcher. And so you have people in the ring And you have Alex Reynolds still laying on the ground, motionless. It was people stepping over him. And there was nothing from the commentators. The commentators didn't mention like, hey, what's Alex Reynolds doing? Alex Reynolds is knocked out cold. Someone should take a look at him. The Young Bucks were in there. The VPs was in that ring and they stepped over Alex Reynolds. After everything, after the shit that AEW went through after Matt Hardy, you would think they would be on top of injuries by now. You would think they would say, okay, for the publicity, for our reputation, let's make sure we get it right next time. Let's make sure we definitely have a doctor or something like that, to definitely make the call. And for that information to be told to the commentators or whoever, so that the audience can definitely understand the decision and the reasoning behind it and the protocols that were taken for a person's injury. And you had the VPs in their wrestling. One of them stepped over Alex Reynolds. We had the referee who did not go to check on Alex Reynolds. I don't recall seeing the doctor running over there, because Alex Reynolds wasn't really at the edge of the ring so that he could talk to a doctor. It was very troubling, I have to say. The Young Bucks win, of course, with a reversal. Afterwards, FTR comes in, starts attacking the Young Bucks. Matt Jackson's leg was taken apart, basically. I believe they put his leg in a chair, and it seems like his leg is injured, so I don't know if he'll be able to wrestle at Full Gear. So maybe they are prolonging this eventual feud that we're getting between the Young Bucks and FTR. Maybe this will cause the Young Bucks to turn more heel, for them to kind of start attacking more. Because I believe they went to... Oh no, that was at last week's show. They attacked Private Party. And I believe as they're super kicking people and things like that, they're going to turn more heel. Or do heelish things, I guess I should say. Since they don't really, in AEW, if I recall correctly, don't really do face and heels. So going into SmackDown, we have the setup for Hell in a Cell. Just to go through a few things, we had Daniel Bryan and Kevin Owens on the KO show. They definitely talked about forming a tag team, which I really don't mind. WWE is very short on tag teams since they constantly split people up. So we, of course, had a 8-man tag that kind of was a little bit all over the place. But Daniel Bryan mentioned something very interesting. He mentioned how the Intercontinental Championship should be defended every week. And he's really big on the IC title. He wants the IC title to be just as big as the WWE Championship, which I definitely agree with. We also had the Law and Otis segment. So this is another segment. What is the point of this? It was pretty much the point of setting up a match for Hell in a Cell. We had APA in there. We had Rey Mysterio in there, which I don't know why. We had Asuka in there, which I don't know why. Otis won the Money in the Bank Championship. Normally when people win Money in the Bank, they're very happy to win the briefcase, and they start carrying it around and they start threatening the champion that they're looking to cash in on, or at least hinting that they have the desire to cash it in. Whereas though Otis has the desire to carry a Money in the Bank lunchbox. But the whole segment is set up. It is the Miz versus Otis, and the winner will win the Money in the Bank briefcase. We finally get Bianca Belair wrestling once again after all these vignettes. I swear, with all these vignettes showing how strong she is, how smart she is, how fast she is, she better win a title shot down the line. That's all I gotta say. We had Chad Gable versus The Freak. Chad was interviewed beforehand, and he said he's going to be dominant or whatever, those type of promos. Then The Freak come out, and the freak, and he did freaking things, and he freaking won. And Chad Gable said he quit. And then there was a later segment, and he said he quit being Shorty G. He said he's tired of the Shorty G stuff. He is now being called Chad Gable again, and I am all for it. I really am. I really hope he is successful. We finally get Bayley to sign a contract. For some reason, WWE decided to give Rollins and Murphy for free. this was a very good matchup, and I don't know why this didn't be saved for the pay-per-view, which is like 2 days away. They could have definitely did something else. They could have had, I don't know, they could have done something else with this segment. Because it was a very good match between Rollins and Murphy. Murphy, it looked like he popped his shoulder out of the socket. At one point, he tried to pop his shoulder back in. And if you watch the match and you really notice, Seth Rollins was also helping him pop his shoulder back in as well with some of the movements he was doing. But in the end, Seth Rollins wins. He goes to attack Murphy with a kendo stick. Aaliyah was watching backstage, and Rey Mysterio and Dominic was trying to encourage her to not watch. And then when she saw that Seth Rollins was about to attack Murphy, she tried to get her dad and her brother to help him out, which they didn't. So she runs out there to protect him. Here comes Dominic and Rey. Well, first here comes Dominic. Dominic, of course, gets his ass beat by Seth Rollins once again. And then Rey Mysterio comes out and Seth Rollins walks away. They try to get Aaliyah to back off of Murphy, and she is kind of embracing him. And I don't get it with these two. Like I said, bad timing. It's not like they're not hiding her age. Rey Mysterio mentioned himself. She's only 19. She's naive. She doesn't know, she doesn't know anything about her world. So it just feels like they're setting up this whole older man entice younger girl type of storyline, which really isn't the best storyline to be doing right now, especially since we are still fairly fresh from a lot of accusing, especially a guy who is in NXT who has been accused of trying to entice younger people underage. I get that she is 19, but the way that Rey Mysterio is kind of talking about her, it seems like she's like underage too. And I don't get it. And I don't think it's the right storyline to do right now. But I don't get the point of this feud because Seth Rollins beat up Dominic so many times. It's like pointless for Dominic to really get any type of comeback. I was hoping that they would stay separated on the two brands so we don't have to deal with this. And then we get to the main event, basically. Roman Reigns coming out to tell everyone what the consequences are if Jey Uso was to lose the Hell in a Cell I Quit match. As soon as Roman Reigns started to talk, we see Jey Uso in the tribal lounge, quote unquote, and he had his mask up and he had a hat on, and he was saying how, maybe he should eat from the table and things like that. And he pulls down the mask, takes off the hat, and it was actually Jimmy Uso. He said that Roman Reigns' head is so far up his tribal ass. So Jimmy, like I said, takes down the mask, takes off the hat, reveals that he is Jimmy, and he said, "My brother is right behind you." And Jey Uso attacks, and this was a pretty good segment. I mean, the twin magic really hasn't been really used by the Usos, especially in a very long time, and I like the fact that it was used here. It was very clever. Definitely showing that Jey Uso may have the slightest of chance to win, but we all know where this is going to go. But I appreciate the fact that they're definitely showing that Jey Uso has a chance to possibly win this, especially with his brother by his side. So, of course, Jey Uso was able to get the upper hand on Roman Reigns. They both go to, Jey Uso goes out to the stage and meet with his brother. Roman Reigns he didn't grab for the mic. He holds out his hand for Paul Heyman to give him the mic. And he said, it's all fun and games for you, and you have no idea what you're getting into. And Roman Reigns said, if I were to say I quit, then, I deserve to step down as the champion, as the face of the company, as the head of the table, the one who feeds the family. Roman Reigns said, when Jey Uso says I quit, Jey Uso will have to do everything Roman Reigns says. He had to admit that he is the tribal chief, the head of the table and everything like that. And to pretty much do everything he says, basically to join him. And he says, if you don't, you're out. And he said, since you bring your brother too, your brother will be out as well. And he said, not just you and your brother. He said, y'all wives and your kids too. And I'm like, not the babies. The babies didn't do anything. And he said, you guys will be out of the family. The family will turn their back to you. We had the feeling that it was going to be high stakes, that Jey Uso would be out of the family if he were to say, I quit or something like that. But I didn't expect the brother, the wives, and the kids. I mean, we talking about Naomi here. Naomi is going to be out of the family if Jey Uso don't follow suit. So it seems like, of course, with the rumors and everything, that people were saying that we are going to get the tribal chief clan or whatever. And it could possibly lead to a showdown with Roman Reigns and The Rock. I'm hoping that Roman Reigns stay as this tribal chief for as long as he can, because this is definitely some good stuff. And this feud definitely gets me hyped for Hell in a Cell. And speaking of which, let's get into some predictions. Now, I was supposed to release this episode on Friday, and then I realized that there were only 4 matches announced, which is sad. The biggest thing with WWE is that they cannot concentrate on too many things at the same time. Because they were so concentrating on this draft and this season premiere, they didn't build up their pay-per-view. And so they're not enticing people to pay $10 or whatever for a pay-per-view that WWE didn't even care enough for, that they only set up 4 matches by the time, well, now 5 matches, 2 days before the actual pay-per-view. Their saving grace is definitely Roman Reigns and Jey Uso matchup, Bayley and Sasha, and even Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton. Those 3 matches are definitely their saving grace. They definitely going to get enough people to tune in to watch, especially for that Roman Reigns and Jey Uso matchup, because that is a pretty good feud. So going into predictions, of course, we have The Miz versus Otis. This is for the winner will win the Money in the Bank contract. I'm going to go with Otis on this one. Even though Miz has Morrison, I think that Otis will retain this contract. Even though it would be more interesting for The Miz to have the contract, because we know he would do a lot more with it. Otis not really seem to care about the contract that's inside. He seems to rather have a lunch pail that matches the briefcase. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe the fact that he is separated, maybe this will put a little oomph into him to actually care about the fact that he's carrying a briefcase, that he is able to he has a very high chance of winning a title. After that, we have Jeff Hardy versus Elias. Of course, this matchup came because Elias believed that Jeff Hardy ran him over with the car, which we knew is not true because it was actually Sheamus, but Elias was somewhere, wherever he was, injured, and didn't pay attention, or obviously didn't watch SmackDown while he was at home, because he would have known that it wasn't Jeff Hardy who hit him. I would like to go with Elias on this one, because if we're looking at it from Elias' point of view, for Jeff Hardy to say he didn't hit him, he definitely crashed his own concert, his live concert, and then hit him with his own guitar. So, definitely some type of heel stuff going on, and really is not the type of thing you would do if you're actually innocent. So maybe there is a swerve that Jeff Hardy actually hit him with the car. Who knows? After that, we have the one of the 3 Hell in a Cell showdowns. This one is Bayley versus Sasha Banks for the SmackDown Women's Championship. And I said in an earlier episode that Sasha Banks was in Hell in a Cell twice. She was actually in Hell in a Cell 3 times. I don't know why I only thought it was twice, but she was actually in the Hell in a Cell 3 times. I am going to go with Sasha Banks on this one. This is definitely setting up for her to win the title. I feel as though this matchup is coming too soon. I would have loved for them to hold this off until they're in front of fans, especially for the turn. I know that it was dragged out for a pretty long time. I know that they were very dominant on both shows, especially when they had all the freaking titles. But I was hoping that they would save this matchup for when they're in front of fans, because this matchup definitely could have benefited in front of fans. But I'm going to go with Sasha Banks on this one. I think she's going to end Bayley's title reign. My only thing is I hope that she is able to successfully defend it, because I don't think she has successfully defended her title yet. So I don't want her to lose the title, at the next pay-per-view or whatever. But normally what happens with Sasha Banks, she will lose here and then win on Raw, and then Raw the next, after pay-per-view, and then win, and then lose it at the next pay-per-view. So I'm hoping that maybe they will do something different here. Next up, we have the next Hell in a Cell matchup. This is for the Universal title, Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton. I feel as though this matchup can go either way. This matchup also isn't really doing much for me anymore. I think this can go either way. I believe I said Randy Orton last time. I think I'm going to go with Drew McIntyre. I think Drew McIntyre wins, and this can end this feud, and maybe Drew McIntyre can go against somebody else. I don't think The Fiend should really go after the title just yet. The way that Randy Orton is inside Hell in a Cell, there'll definitely be moments that will not be for the weak at heart. If we all remember Randy Orton taking the screwdriver and putting it through Jeff Hardy's ear and twisting it, Randy Orton can be a sick son of a bitch sometimes. And so I fully expect for him to pull some shit out of his ass. Well, I really shouldn't use those words, but I really expect him to do some shit, and we'll definitely be talking about it the next day. And then we get to the main event, Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, the Hell in a Cell I Quit match for the WWE Championship. I mean, it really is a no-brainer. This is going to be Roman Reigns winning, and he is going to try to continue his dominance as the Tribal Chief. I believe Jey Uso will, start to follow his command. I think Roman Reigns may have Jey Uso go against Jimmy Uso, and then it will lead to Roman Reigns feuding against Jimmy Uso, and then eventually placing the same stipulation as well. Now, my only thing with this pay-per-view, like I said, there's only 5 matches announced as of SmackDown. We are missing quite a few titles off of this pay-per-view. I mean, I know this isn't Clash of Champions, but there are some titles that really don't have anything going for them. We're missing both tag team championship on the men's side. We're missing the women's tag team championship, the Intercontinental title, the United States title, and the women's Raw championship. Also, like I said, Seth Rollins and Murphy could have definitely been saved for the pay-per-view. It definitely was a pay-per-view match that they had on SmackDown. And where's The Fiend? This is pretty much your the horror show, if you want to really use that little tagline. This is your pay-per-view in the middle of October, a weekend away from Halloween, and you're not going to use the biggest storyline, the most favorite union on Raw right now, which is Alexa Bliss and The Fiend. Now, there was rumors that The Fiend could go against one of the members from Retribution, possibly T-Bar, or they'll just do a Firefly Funhouse and have him pop up or something like that. But there's not even a matchup for the pre-show. So more likely they're going to announce more matches either on Saturday, or they're going to announce it during the pre-show, which is the dumbest thing. So those are my predictions for the 5 matches, 2 days away from, well, actually 1 day away. It is technically Saturday. 24 hours away from the pay-per-view. I just hope it's a good pay-per-view. Obviously, WWE hasn't put too much thought into it. Really couldn't see past their own season premiere. But I hope it's a good pay-per-view. So that's it for the WrestleBread podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Give a couple of shout outs. Shout out to Julian and Rob Bass from the Wrestling Court Podcast and AlternativeMinds.com. Keita and Jay from the Keita and Jay Show. Chris from We Talk Next Podcast, which is featured on the Keita and Jay Show. Dando and Larry from Half K Podcast. Devin Hafiz from Clark Street Wrestling. And my boys over at Powerbomb Jitsu. So coming up next week is going to be another 2-episode week. I will be giving my recap of Hell in a Cell and Bound for Glory, and I will also be giving my predictions for Halloween Havoc, and I will also be recapping Raw as well, the Fallout show for Hell in a Cell. And then later on that week, I will be giving my recap of Halloween Havoc, and it will be somewhat of a special episode. I have been asking people on Twitter and on Instagram some Halloween Havoc matches to review, and I have 6 matches to review during the episode, the second episode of me giving my review for Halloween Havoc. I thought that would line up perfectly. Instead of doing what I did with WrestleMania and doing 2 per episode, I decided to make a whole Halloween Havoc type of recap. So be sure to hop on Twitter and follow me, Jaydee Talks. That's Jayde Talks, and follow the podcast as well. The podcast is also on Instagram and YouTube. And like I had said last week, I will be putting out a YouTube recapping the 30 Days of the Dead Man. It's going to be a weekly series. Try to drop a video every Monday, just recapping what happened on the episodes of the docuseries that will be that is every Sunday for 5 weeks. And there are rumors that The Undertaker may be coming back for Survivor Series or whatever, because it is 30 years that since The Undertaker have debuted it. And so let me know your review. Let me know your thoughts. It is now 3:30 in the morning. I don't know why I am up this late. Normally I record maybe 6 hours earlier than this, but for whatever reason, it's Friday night. So I don't know. My body is decided to just that today is the day that I would just stay up to 3:30 in the morning. And I probably won't fall asleep to 4 o'clock. Other than that, enjoy your weekend. And I'm going to go try to get some sleep and try not to watch TikTok. Until next time, guys. Peace.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Check us out at WrestleBread.com and subscribe to WrestleBread on YouTube for more breaking news and JD's opinions.